Session 11, Communications, Outreach, and Publications. So today we welcome Mr. Martin Akech. He's the product manager at iShamba. His background is in agricultural, economic, and rural development. He focuses on using digital tools such as SMS, USSD TV, and IVR to empower rural communities. Hello? Oh, sorry. With knowledge in order to change attitudes and practices. We have Marceline Tata. She's the media coordinator for the Current and Emerging Threats to Crops Innovation Lab. She has a background in linguistics, media, and communication. She specializes in development, designing, editing, and publication of content in print and social media platforms to empower farming and pastoralist communities with knowledge. And we have Holly Whetstone. She's the director of communications and marketing in the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources at MSU. She has a background in journalism and marketing. She establishes and directs communications and marketing activities to meet the goals of MSU Ag Bio Research and the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources. So welcome. And with that, please go ahead. Mercy, you're muted. Can you unmute yourself?
Okay, thank you very much, Kalista, for the wonderful introduction. And I'm going to start off by presenting on how to communicate about your project to the public. And communication is one of the topics that has been mentioned repeatedly by different speakers, and the speakers have stressed on the importance of communicating at every stage of your project. And communication can be between the project PIs, your donors, or even the management entity. But then how do you communicate your project impact to the general public? So in most cases, you want to inform the public about your project and to promote the project results. So it's therefore important to have a targeted and well-thought communication strategy in order to attain this. So for you to have a communication strategy, the communication strategy should have a clearly defined message, a clear target audience, as well as a clearly defined message, a clear target audience, as well as a clear channel. So let's go to the next slide, please. So in developing a communication framework, it is important to understand your project mission and the purpose as a driving force to establish your communication goal. So I will give you an example of Dream Team Agro Consultancy Limited, which is one of the project partner under the USAID funded Current and Emerging Threats to Crops Innovation Lab. And the Dream Team Agro Consultancy Limited company, the mission was to scale IPM packages in maize to millions of farmers. And from this mission, the communication goal that was derived was to increase awareness on the various pests and diseases, as well as weeds, and also to communicate on the different packages that is being applied. So this translates the why in the communication. And after you have understood the why as to why you want to communicate, the next step is to identify the key audiences. So to move on, here you have to ask yourself several questions. Who are the audience group? Is it a research partner? Is it stakeholder? Is it the general audience? And who are the members of this audience group? Is it a farming community? Is it the journalists or the media, or is it academia? So a project can comprise of different audience, and in many cases, this audience are interested in different aspects of your project, and they might prefer different channels. So back to the example that I had given on Dream Team Agro Consultancy Limited, whereby we identified that the message was about pests and diseases, as well as the different IPM packages in maize. And the target audience was the farming community. So after identifying the audience and understanding that your audience is the farming community, the next thing you can do is to determine which communication channel is suitable to use. For the case of Dream Team Agro Consultancy, they use Media, a company, which is a company in Kenya that they do TV production and they produce the Shamba Shaper programs to millions of farmers. So to attain this, Dream Team Agro Consultancy clearly communicated about their goals, which was awareness on the different IPM packages to a larger audience. So the third thing here in this diagram is the channel. And we have already talked about the why and the who. Now we are going to talk about the what in communication. And the what in communication is the channels or the different platforms that can be used to communicate your research project. And one of the platform, which is the bare minimum that any project should have, is a website. So it is important to have a web presence, and your project should provide regular updates and accurate and transparent information to your audience. For example, you will see that most projects, including the current and emerging threats to crops, they have a website which provide different project updates. If an audience go there, they can easily be updated on the project. Another platform that your project can use is blog, and blogs are a way to keep your website updated with current content. And they also offer an opportunity to simplify technical information. So it is important to have regular blogs that dive into different aspects of your project. And these blogs can be disseminated through social media to different target audience. You can decide to do blogs monthly, you can decide to do blogs weekly, you can decide to do blogs even after 2 times a week, so that you communicate on different aspects of your project. And the blogs they can stay as standalones, or they can be embedded in your website. So another platform that a project should leverage is newsletters. And newsletters, they provide a platform where you can deliver detailed project information to your audience. And in most cases, the newsletter subscribers are collected through a subscription form that is promoted through we send the newsletter that they have subscribed, the email list that they have subscribed through our website. So the last channel that I will touch on is social media. And we live in a technologically advanced world where different audience, they prefer to obtain information in a variety of ways. And this includes things like social media. And your project should leverage the different social media channels available. We have things like Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, as well as TikTok. And your project should leverage the different varieties of social media. So the first thing you can do is you establish your own social media platforms for your project, or you can as well utilize social media platforms for your collaborators or your parent organization to reach a broader audience. So advantage of using things like social media is that they are low cost, and you can as well send things like videos or blogs via your social media channels. And the social media, they provide things like metrics whereby you can track the impressions or the engagements of your project via the metrics that the social media provide. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to slide.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Throughout this course, we've talked about project, and at this particular stage, you have already, you are in almost the middle of implementing your project, and there are some key things that you want to showcase to your community, your partners that you're working on this project, target audience, customers, or if you're doing a project that is farm related, then you want to showcase this unique technology. So one of the key things when you are doing a project is, getting out of your office, the lab, and going to meet the people that are involved in that project, or the intended beneficiary of the project, and trying to explain to them how your unique solution or your research hypothesis aligned to their objectives on life. So one of the key things is the outreach. And in outreach activities, it is a two-way communication where you get immediate feedback from the people. You showcase them the research project that you're doing. And this is an opportunity for you to also get feedback from people, especially if people have used that technology or research. You also get to show people or demonstrate how that particular technology works. So these are very key aspect when you're doing research, because it opens you to a wider spectrum of possible customers, donors, potential public people who can be of interest to the project. So an outreach activity is meant to engage a larger audience, and the main activity is to bring knowledge and expertise to the people involved in the project. It's also promote civic engagement in your project and research. And this is where you can have a place where you can share knowledge, both from your expert and also from your fellow expert in the team, and also from farmers or customers. The other thing about outreach is that it strengthens community, and sometimes it leads them to take a particular decision that can transform the society. So, for example, picking from PlantVillage, when they go to the field and meet farmers and talk about parasitoids and how to control fall armyworm, at the end of that in activity, showing farmers how to take images with the phone, and how that image, how the neuro can diagnose a disease and give feedback. That in itself, strengthen the community, and in future you're likely to get more people who will use such technology to solve that situation. So this is another way of how an outreach can transform the society. And once you have clearly defined what the main objective of the outreach is, it's much easier to go about it. So it can be in form of a school presentation, it can be in form of a workshop, it can be in form of a public talk, lab visit. Some outreach may be in form of a lab visit, especially if whatever is being done, there are some resources that are involved in outreach that cannot be moved from, for example, if you're doing diagnosis of certain diseases, it can only be done within a lab, and therefore you want to invite those people to your lab. Otherwise, sometimes you take it, to the respective people. So one of the key things also to consider is your target audience is very important. For projects that are donor funded, your target audience could vary from the donors. Sometimes you want to have an outreach where you showcase them the results. And the aim is that you want to tell them, this is much I've done, and probably this is how much I could achieve in future. I remember David was talking about, reaching out to 200 million farms in terms of their 25-year plan. So that tells you how that a broad goal they have. And one of the key things to showcase the result they already have is a workshop or an outreach like this one. Activities also should be carefully selected based on the target audience, their knowledge level, their age, race, gender, religion, etc. So that the aim, the manner in which the workshop outreach activities conducted does not upset the participants, because that is very important. Next slide. So when you are conducting outreach, the first question is the why, and the why basically look at the objective of the outreach. And the main objective normally is you want to explain your objective, you want to explain your research hypothesis, and you want to explain your findings or future project to the target community. And then the other thing is if you have already product that is already ready for deployment, then this is the time you want to do demo so that people can see how to use Nuru, for example. How should they take images? How can they validate information? For example, if you are talking about Dream Team, how can they validate the information so that the people working at the back end can see, okay, fine, this is the best data collected, and this data require more information. The other thing is that if you have a product that is already being used probably for more than 6 months, then this is the best time for you to collect feedback from the users. And this primarily focuses on the immediate beneficiaries or immediate users of your product. And then we look at the how. The how is how to conduct an outreach. So in the past, outreach were mainly done through workshops or community engagement. But with the advent of technology and digital technology growing, we've seen calls, SMSs, digital, and even mainstream media being used to conduct outreach. The most important thing when you're looking at how to conduct outreach is to look at your budget. This is very important. You want to come up with, you want to select a media that accommodate all participants. And if you are, for example, focusing on the immediate user, then probably a workshop will work. Calls may work, for example, Zoom call like this one, if you are probably just focusing on your donors. And calls may also work during the times when we have issues like pandemic. I remember during pandemic, most people couldn't travel, but this is the time also when people in our space like agriculture achieved a lot in terms of trying the best way to coordinate activities, trying the best way to coordinate projects. I remember one of the key things that we did with the PlantVillage was locust mapping during COVID-19. So that also tells you how technology also come along when you're working on this. So next slide. So just before we go to publication, so one of the key things is when you have decided that you want to conduct an outreach, the most important thing for you to do is, first of all, to have a plan, a very clear plan and an objective. You also want to reduce your, you also want to define your outreach in terms of, is it a demo? Is it a feedback? Are you meeting donors? Are you meeting the end users? Are you meeting your funders? Sometimes you want to have just an outreach that, just focus on your funders. So once you define who are going to be the key thing, then you also want to come up with a timeline for it. Is it a one-day activity? Are you going to have 2 or 3 days? And then the other thing is you must communicate to target audience in terms of prior communication. If people have to travel, you want to give them enough time. If people have to, if it is happening in a community, then you want to do it at a certain way. All community members are available to participate in that workshop. And then for projects that are funded by, for example, through PlantVillage or Feed the Future, then you also want to make sure that your workshop is within the budget line, and it also has to be clearly branded within, so that people just know who are the people participating in this workshop, what is it about, and who are the main people involved. Branding is very important for workshop because the people, for example, who funded your project will know that this is the impact of the project that we are funding. So dissemination and publication is about putting out the final findings of your project outside there. And sometimes they're used for trainings. Sometimes they also help to inform future policies within government or within your organization. So I'll stop there and allow the next. Next slide. I'll stop at that point and invite the next presenter.
Okay, thank you, Martin. So for this presentation, it's about branding and marking. So for all the publication output that is done under a project, there is a specific branding and marking guideline that most funders or donors provide. For the case of USAID, there's a certain way in which we brand using the logo, the Feed the Future logo, the USAID logo. And for the case of the Innovation Lab, the Current and Emerging Threats to Crops Innovation Lab, we also have the Pennsylvania State University logo, as well as PlantVillage logo. And for this case, the Feed the Future logo is usually placed at the top right left, and the USAID logo is also placed at the bottom right. Where bottom left, then the Pennsylvania State logo and PlantVillage logo, they are placed at the bottom right and adjacent to each other. So for the project, if you are a partner organization and you want to include your institutional logo, you can as well place your logo, but you place your logo at the bottom, maybe after the PlantVillage logo or the Pennsylvania State logo. And for the case, for all projects, that is for all projects under the Current and Emerging Threats to Crops Innovation Lab, we provided a branding document that showcase the position of this logo, and these documents are in Basecamp. Next slide. So another thing to note is that for the marking, there is a specific wording that the Feed the Future has provided, whereby you have to show that whatever you are producing is supported through American people and through the United States Agency of International Development. And also it's a project under a certain innovation lab. So this marking word is important, that when you're producing things like reports or any publication, you have to state that whatever you're producing is supported or is made possible by the support of the USAID. And that whatever you have provided or the content that you've produced is your responsibility, and it doesn't reflect the views of the USAID or the United States government. So branding and marking is done in many publications, and it's not done in things like stationary products. things like letterhead and name tag. So I'm going to leave it to Holly to continue.
Hello.
Hey, Holly.
Okay. For whatever reason, my internet seemed to go out there. So, hello and good day. I want to thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate the panelists' mention of audience and importance of social media, blogs, newsletters, metrics, outreach, and community engagement. So I currently lead communications and marketing efforts for MSU Ag Bio Research. For those of you who are not familiar with that, that is our research and development arm of the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources here at MSU. So whether you're working on publications, websites, or digital communications, I guess my little nugget of advice today is encourage you not to shy away from tough topics, but do your best to tackle them when and if possible. What we've learned within our college is having conversations on difficult subjects, pushing the envelope, if you will, especially on topics that the public may not fully understand at first, can be some of our most productive in terms of moving the needle on important topics related to food, climate, water, sustainability. And they have really been the most impactful for us. So I feel as if addressing difficult subjects is what we as communicators have been largely assigned to do and should be focused on. So I'd like to share a little bit about what we've been up to within our college to have those conversations. And fortunately, we've had some remarkable response and engagement with us. So next slide, I believe. So what are some of those difficult subjects that we might need to tackle? What we've been focused on in the past few years, GMOs, antibiotic resistance, food waste, food security. They can all be divisive and polarizing, but as communicators, we choose not to, if we ignore these topics and avoid them, and focus more on our faculty accolades, student staff accolades. We found, obviously, those are extremely important, but if we engage and help to educate the public on issues that are critical to their futures and their next generations. We found that to be extremely impactful. So our international portfolio. So a little background here. Michigan State has been engaged in work impacting the globe since its founding in 1855. And the College of Ag and Natural Resources has really been at the core of why the university was first established. John Hanna, who held the role of president of our institution from 1941 to 1969, really emphasized that mission and set the stage for much of our global work. So here is one example of our work to highlight some of our worldwide impacts. This is part of Futures magazine, which we publish twice a year. We focus on thematic issues in every issue. And this one actually celebrated our work and endeavors across the globe, especially in Africa, where we've been working to improve legume and cowpea research, among many issues for decades. Next slide. So to help address some of these tough topics and inform and engage with the public, we started a campaign called Our Table. It's a series of roundtable discussions that all take place across a beautiful wooden table that was built from fallen trees from campus. We take this table, and it's designed with a Spartan helmet inlay in the middle, around to local communities. We actually invite the public to attend and host conversations on some of the previous topics I've already mentioned. We have around the table faculty, staff, students, and also members of the community. The premise really is to engage and encourage conversation. We encourage folks to put down their phones and actually talk to one another, not text or email, but really engage in dialogue with one another. While the pandemic has put a halt to these events, we pray our plan is to bring them back very soon. Next slide. So In the Field is our annual magazine that we send to donors and alumni. It's another place where we try to really push the envelope a little bit, try to be provocative with our stories and content. And we even had one of our leading water researchers photographed underwater for our cover story, which she was featured in. So, and next slide. So last but not least, whenever possible, we really want to share voices of all the folks who are working with us, who are being educated by us, whether it's a faculty member, staff, student, and even a community member. We really found that people find our stories and look for them through voices and faces. They want to connect to folks who they want to hear their voices and hear what they're thinking. So it's a little snapshot of what we've been up to lately. And thank you again for letting me be part of this important discussion.
So we have our conclusion slide here. I'm not sure if someone wants to talk about this or if it was just there for information.
Yeah, so that is the conclusion. And the key thing of a successful project is communication. So even in outreach, communication, and publication, you want to make sure that all partners, all parties involved are always in the same wavelength in terms of communication. So the information planning should be done in a manner that update each partner of the activities involved, and always have as much evidence as possible when you're doing outreach. Sometimes you can have an outreach where it's very difficult for you to validate if you don't, for example, take pictures and communicate. So these are very key part of your project, because this is where people who are never involved in the project get to know about the project, and they can contribute on the sustainability of the project moving forward. So as you plan your project, as you plan your activities, make sure that one, you carefully select how to undergo these 3 items, put a budget for it, and preferably put someone in charge of this important task, so that it's not a by the way, but it's a core function of your project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We have just a couple minutes before we have to start the next session. I know that there are several questions, but let's just take one and then we'll answer the other questions offline, and we will send you, as always, the Q&A document after the program. So the first question that came through is, we are writing posts about the impact in Tanzania for, there's a URL there. I'm not going to read the URL. What is the best way to get summary information about the number of farms surveyed, percentage with disease, etc.?
I answered one of Janet's questions, and we were going to talk internally about the role of superset that we saw earlier. So we'll take that offline and get back to Janet on that. Okay.
All right. I'll mark that one as done. And the next few are from Janet as well. So maybe we'll just have you answer those offline as well. Okay, there was one question that came through the chat in French, and I used Google Translate to translate it. I hope my translation is accurate. I would like to know if the messages by video or audio are subject to an evaluation to ensure that a word, a passage, an item, a posture, etc., would not affect the sensitivity, the mores, the representations of part of the community. For me, the message passes easily and integrates if and only if everyone finds themselves in the message. Would you like to comment on that?
Yes, it is very.
Go ahead, Martin.
it is very important that when we communicate, people feel that they are the center of that message. People feel that they are being, an information is being passed to them, or what they were involved in is being talked about. So if I feel like whatever is being said is not about me, definitely I'll switch off even before the entire of that message. So understanding your audience and making sure that the audience at the center of that message is very key.
Okay, perfect. Okay, with that, I will conclude this session and we will move on to our final session. Thank you very much, Marcelin and Holly and Martin. And again, please continue to ask questions and we will answer them offline. Thank you very much.